Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth podcast. I'm Jack Smith.
I'm Shrikar Rajendran.
I'm Anish Gupta.
I'm Tyler. I'm New York Jets Game Plan.
Yeah, so Tyler joining us, coming from New York Jets Game Plan on Instagram. The link for his account is going to be in the description. And Tyler, do you want to start us off talking about your grades for the draft and free agency for the Jets before we get started?
Yeah, so we can go into the draft first, since that's brand new in everybody's memories. We can start with the first round. So Mekhi Becton, the Jets' first-round draft pick. I give that pick a B+ individually because I felt he was the best available offensive lineman on the board, and I know the Jets thought he was the best offensive lineman on the board at that time. So that was definitely a great pick for them. I thought they nailed it. Had Jedrick Wills fell to them at 11 and the Browns not picked him at 10, I would have definitely thought the Jets were going to go him. But yeah, moving on to round 2, we could look at it's actually falling off my memory. Denzel Mims. Obviously, yeah, Denzel Mims. Denzel Mims. So the Jets obviously dropped back from 48 to 59 to pick up Mims, and everybody thought that was a Brainiac move by GM Joe Douglas to do that. Because everybody thought he was going to go much earlier. Mims, athletic freak, tall, big, a lot of comparisons to Brandon Marshall early in his career. So I give that pick an A, a solid A. Because I thought they were going to take him at 48 if they didn't move back. They end up taking him at 59. Thought it was a great pick. Moving on to round 3, pick 68, Ashton Davis, safety out of Cal. I give that pick a B-. At the time, I really didn't understand it, but now I kind of get more of the gist of why they took a safety. They took both Jamal Adams and Marcus May in the 2015 draft, and I know a lot of Jets fans might not want to believe it, but paying those two safeties at the same time is going to be tough, and it's going to take a huge hit on the cap. Jamal Adams is already looking at around $17 million a year, one of the best players in the NFL, regardless. And Marcus May, really underrated, under that Jamal Adams spotlight because he hasn't been looked at a lot. He's still going to get a lot of the cap, so yeah, he'll definitely get paid as well.
Yep.
So Ashton Davis pick, I give a B-. Move along here. I'll actually pick Jabari Sanuga, Michael P. Ryan in the same category here. Just to move a little quicker. So I give those picks combined, I give it about a B. Jabari I thought was actually a pretty good prospect out of Florida when I scouted him myself. He was getting a lot of comparisons to that previous Jets draft pick.
Kai Polite.
Kai Polite.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget about that one, huh?
Yeah, it is easy. That's why it left my mind. But I actually don't agree with those comparisons at all, though. I think he's not as raw as Ja'Kai was coming out of college, and I don't think he's going to get cut on the second day training camp.
Yeah.
So, and Michael P. Ryan, yeah, again, a B. I think I thought it was actually really smart by Joe Douglas to actually draft a backup running back in the later rounds, because not to compare him to anybody, but Alvin Kamara got drafted in the later rounds as well. Some other notable running backs. So I actually don't agree with picking a running back early. I don't like picking a running back in round 1. I don't think it's a smart investment long term because as we see in the NFL, yeah, paying running backs, in my opinion, just it rarely works out. See Todd Gurley, see Le'Veon Bell at this point. But yeah, I thought it was a great pick, and I think he'll be with the Jets. I actually compare him to Bilal Powell in the way he runs, his effectiveness on the ground. So I think he can actually be a force for the Jets in the coming years. Yeah. I'm going to put James Morgan here. I'm actually going to give this pick a C-. It doesn't make sense to me at all. I understand the developmental quarterback aspect. A lot of people say every team should pick a quarterback in every draft because eventually if he becomes great, you can trade him for a first rounder and say you already have a franchise quarterback in Sam Darnold. It could work out.
Franchise guy in Sam Darnold.
I just don't know. I don't know down the line how James Morgan's really going to work out for him. So we'll see. It's a really interesting pick. I still think they're going to sign a veteran backup, in my opinion. See Joe Flacco, Matt Moore worked under Gase.
Really good option.
Miami. Yep. So we'll see there. Cameron Clark, offensive tackle out of UNC. I thought was a pretty good pick. Developmental offensive guard. The goal for 2021 is if we can get Mekhi Becton and Clark on the field at the same time. 2 offensive line draft picks, already better than McCagnon. So we'll see how that works out. And just heading down the list here, last 2 guys, Bryce Hall out of Virginia, great pick. I thought he was a second-round talent, albeit injury concerns, but I thought he was a great pick there. I give that pick a A again. And I give the Cameron Clark pick a B minus if I didn't say that already. And then punter Braden Mann, round 6, 191. Thought it was an okay pick. I actually liked Lachlan Edwards. I thought it was pretty good, but I like it. I'll give it a B. I don't usually agree on using draft picks on punters, but this guy was the best punter in the country from 2018 to now, so I guess I'll let it slide.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you a lot on that one. The Ashton Davis pick, I want to kind of go back to a little bit because I think it's been rumored he can also play corner. So I think he's kind of a versatile piece. And while Adams may be that hard-hitting safety that we see all over the field making big plays, I think that Ashton Davis will go well with Adams because he'll be able to kind of free roam in center field and make the coverage plays he needs to, and he won't really have to get down and dirty in the box. So I really like that pick. I gave it then maybe a B plus to an A. So that pick I can understand a little bit more. Shrikar and Anish, you guys want to get into it a little bit?
I'll get into it.
Oh, Shrikar, why don't you go ahead? I got a couple questions.
If you want to go.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So, Tyler, I had a couple questions to kind of based off your analysis. So, first, for the Mekhi Becton one, obviously, I know you wanted Wills, and sorry to take him from you, but I mean, I'm pretty happy with our pick. But
no problem.
So you had Wirfs on the board, right? And there was kind of a decision between Becton or Wirfs, right? One's kind of a right tackle, could be a guard, hybrid kind of guy, Tristan Wirfs, right? Big 10, big body, right? Obviously, but you got a huge body there, Mekhi Becton available. So first off, I kind of wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on picking Becton over Wirfs? And then also, because of this whole O-line issue with the Jets, right? I know Jack has constantly been complaining about it because apparently it's completely hurting Sam Darnold's production. So even though he's still seeing ghosts, I guess. But what are your thoughts on them kind of investing a lot in the offensive line over the 2 past off seasons? And, I believe they got at least 4 guys in free agency in the draft. I think George Fant, Connor McGovern are the kind of guys that highlight it. So I'm not a big fan of revamping offensive lines in like 1 year because I feel like it's hard for them to gel chemistry, especially without OTAs now. It's going to be kind of hard for them to learn with each other. So kind of 2-question combo there. What are your thoughts on first Becton over Wirfs? And also what are your thoughts on how the Jets invested in their O-line, and do you think they all can gel together by September?
So yeah, we'll go into Becton over Wirfs first. So at the time, I was actually a little weary because I saw Wirfs on that board, and I was like, the Jets are definitely picking him over Becton, 100%. I think every Jets fan had that in their mind at that time. Becton being 6'7", I think he's 365, pretty raw prospect coming out. I saw he got comparisons to Ogden, the Ravens draft pick back in
Jonathan
2001.
Ogden, wow.
Yeah, I saw you got comparisons to him.
Comparison.
I don't agree with it yet. I hate putting comparisons out usually before a prospect plays, but I understand both are big-bodied. But getting back to Mekhi over Wirfs, I think it's a good decision at the end of the day, albeit I'm a little biased considering they did pick Becton. But I liked Wirfs coming out. I thought he was a little less raw than Becton, obviously. He has that guard experience and tackle experience, definitely pretty versatile. Overall, I think Wirfs is going to do great in Tampa Bay, actually. I think he fits Tom Brady's system. I think they run a lot of outside zone schemes. They did in New England, at least with Sony Michel. And I think they're probably going to transfer a lot of that zone scheming to Tampa Bay as well. So I wouldn't be surprised, seeing Tristan Wirfs on the move. In the pocket, Brady's a pretty standalone guy, so he's not going to have to probably move around a lot when not asked to. But overall, Becton over Wirfs. We'll see how it plays out in 5 years, but right now I'm pretty content. And just refresh me on the next question.
It was just so again, the whole offensive line thing with kind of these new guys like I think I mentioned George Fant and Connor McGovern. There's also Alex Lewis, I believe.
Yeah.
A lot of those new guys.
Greg Van
Roten as well.
Carolina. I actually love that Greg Van Roten signing, and I'll tell you why in a little bit.
Yeah. So, but all these guys that I'm kind of mentioning here, right? It's obviously the Jets O-line. I believe it was like bottom 5 in the league.
It was
one could argue bottom 3. Yeah. So
100%.
Obviously there's a lot of kind of controversy there with the new guys coming in. So my question was kind of centralized on what do you think about the whole revamping of the offensive line? I believe they're doing it for the 2nd year in a row now, and I just don't think it's really hard to kind of do that in a few months' time, especially with a group like that, because I'm huge on offensive line. I think that's one of the most important facets of the game, along with coach and quarterback. So what are your thoughts on them kind of doing this kind of revamping again? And do you think it could work getting all these guys into the offensive line?
Right. So a lot of these guys, not all five, but I would say the Greg Van Roten signing, every other signing, George Fant, he's obviously getting paid starter money. 3 years, 30 million is a lot of money to pay for a left
Yeah.
tackle, right tackle, who didn't really have much success before this. He's, I think, 27 years old now. Um, I'll say this. My opinion on it is I don't think Joe Douglas is actually trying to revamp this entire O-line in 1 year. A lot of these signings are going to be depth signings by 2022, I think. Like McGovern might still be on the roster, but he's getting up there in age, of course. And they're not, obviously, he's not going to be, I don't think he's going to be the starting center for the Jets past maybe 2 years. So a lot of these signings, in my opinion, are depth signings. I don't see a lot of these guys as starters. Why I like the Greg Van Roten signing is I like bringing in those Long Island guys. He's from Long Island. He's a Long Island native, close to home. I love that signing. I think that kind of chemistry close to home is great for the Jets. That's why I was so mad when they let Robbie Anderson go, because he's a homegrown talent. He literally like, for lack of a better word, busts his balls here for a good portion of his career. So I was sad to see him go. I love homegrown talent. Yeah, but the best signing out of all of them is definitely Connor McGovern. I think he got 3 years, 27 million.
Yep.
I think he's one of the top 15 centers in the league right now. He could definitely make it up that list if he performs well on the Jets. The Jets, obviously, as you know, Jack, haven't had a good center since Nick Mangold at this point.
Oh yeah, that's
right?
a OSU guy. He's a Buckeye. I love
We've
him.
been through a bunch of them: Spencer Long, Wesley Johnson, and now Jonathan Harrison. Bunch of them. So I'm really happy they got that center. I like Van Roten as a depth signing. Fant, he actually just came out today. He's more comfortable playing left tackle. That could stem to be an issue because Becton is slated to start at that left tackle spot.
Yeah.
So hopefully they could work that out. I don't think he minds playing right tackle, but I mean, anyone who says they're more comfortable playing left tackle sometimes has a little bit of a struggle going to that opposite side of the line. But we'll see what happens. They also have Chuma Adoga on that line. I like him a lot. I know the coaching staff loves him.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he develops over time. I like the Alex Lewis re-signing. I think he's a starter in this league. Although I was kind of a little shaken by them not trying to force their way into Jack Conklin or Joe Thuney, like a trade. Although it actually looks better now than it would have back then, because I think Joe Douglas was trying to go for the cheaper approach this free agency, which makes sense because I read an article not too long ago that said by 2021 he's going to have a load of cap space, and they're going to really try to go after some of those premier free agents. So I'm actually happy they tried to get these depth signings now. I think it's a smarter approach to free agency that we really didn't see with McCagnon. McCagnon just sort of threw his money everywhere. C.J. Mosley, Le'Veon Bell. We saw this Quincy Enunwa signing. I know it didn't end up how it was supposed to, but it's just money down the drain, you know? So I'm happy he went a little cheaper this free agency.
Yeah, and you mentioned Robbie Anderson. I kind of want to touch on that a little bit. I believe that they should have kept him, but I was a little bit leaning towards letting him walk just because I'm not sure if the money was worth it for a little bit of an inconsistent player. What do you think about them replacing Robbie with Brashad Perryman and Denzel Mims? How do you think that's going to work out next year?
Yeah, so it's going to be tough because a lot of fans did not like seeing Robbie go, and I was one of them. At the time, I was a little depressed that they let him go, especially seeing after he signed a 2-year, $20 million dollar deal, I think, at Carolina.
With Carolina, yep.
Like you're thinking, like, oh my God, you're kidding me! Like, how can the Jets not offer him $10 million? But I guess they were willing to go another direction. But getting back to your question about how this is going to progress wide receiver wise, the Brashad Perriman signing I thought was pretty good. I thought it was a standalone average signing to replace Robbie Anderson at the time. I don't think he's a number one. Okay. I think he's a solid number two. I know he was behind Mike Evans and
Chris Godwin.
Yeah, Chris Godwin over there at the Buccaneers. And then he got elevated because both of those guys got hurt, I believe, right?
Yep.
At the end of the season, last 4 games, he had to really step in there, and he played great, especially Jameis Winston being the quarterback there. We all know how that went down. But, yeah, I think it went great. I hope he could really repeat that success with the Jets because we haven't had a successful wide receiver since Brandon Marshall, in my opinion. So I really think he can successful.
Tyler, I just wanted to touch on that really quick. Sorry, guys. But
yeah, no, you're good.
So with Perryman and Mims, I really liked it because, well, at least for me, Robbie Anderson, I just didn't see him being a consistent producer. I know he's a Long Island guy. I know you love your native players, but like, he would go for like 5 catches, 123, and then the next game it would be like 3 catches for 24 yards or something like that. I just didn't see consistent number one production out of him that you would really want in a solid number one receiver that can help kind of the guy that you're trying to set up to be your franchise quarterback and Sam Darnold use to develop, right? And like you said, I believe Brandon Marshall is kind of the last guy that they had. I still remember in 2015 when they had Decker and Marshall.
Yeah,
And
Marshall went for, I'm pretty sure, yeah,
I think it was
1,500 yards. Decker 12.
1,514.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Decker 1,000. That was a great year.
That was exactly. And obviously I'm mad that Pittsburgh got in over you guys, but
Yeah.
I think when we kind of look back on what the Jets have been doing at receiver, I think Mims and Perriman, I think it's a great combination because like you said, I was actually going to bring up the point when Godwin and Evans got hurt. I thought Perriman played great as a number one. I believe he had a couple 100-yard games in there, a couple double touchdown games too. So I think like him and Mims, I think opposite sides. One guy's a speedy dude that can get down the field, and you got Mims, who's a strong, big body possession guy who can also get those one-on-one balls. So I think that's good for Sam Darnold. And I mean, I guess I can see what you're saying in terms of like Perriman not having enough experience as a number one. But let's say a year down the road, do you think Mims could overtake him and be that number one guy and have Perriman come in as a compliment?
Absolutely. That's what I actually rather. Mims really develop into that number one guy because again, we haven't had that number one guy since really 2015, and we've only had a glimpse of that for 1 year. So imagine what it could be 5 years down the road with Darnold throwing to Mims, his established number one. I would love Perriman to be a number two. I think he's a good receiver. I just don't think I haven't seen enough from him to establish him as a solid number one yet. I think he could definitely be that. He's a great receiver, reliable hands. I'm pretty sure he actually fixed his hands now on the Buccaneers because you remember he definitely had some drop problems on the Ravens.
Even with the Browns. Yep. Browns.
Yeah, on the Browns as well. Yeah, you should know the best. So so
I still remember.
Wide receiver, I think they addressed it okay this offseason. There's definitely some work to do, but I think there's still some weeks until the NFL season. You never know what can go down, but as of right now, I think it's okay.
I think people forgot a little bit about Jamison Crowder and the production he had, especially when Darnold was under center last year, because it's no secret Darnold loves to go to the slot and his tight ends. And week one against the Bills, I mean, it seemed like Jamison Crowder had 100 receptions in week one. So he loves to go to Crowder and tight ends. He's actually one of the best quarterbacks in the league throwing to tight ends. And we're going to get these 2 new receivers as well as Herndon back for the year. So I think that a lot of people are kind of forgetting the underrated weapons that Darnold has. What do you think about, Herndon coming back, Ryan Griffin, who we already had, and then Crowder?
Yeah, I was going to touch on Herndon. I think it's going to be huge. And don't forget about Daniel Brown, that third tight end. He had some production last year too against the Redskins, especially I think, and the Giants. So I think they have a very good tight end group. I think if they get established, it could be definitely top 13 in the league, especially with all that talent. They signed Ryan Griffin to a 3-year deal not too long ago.
I thought that was great too.
Yep. Great depth. I love the tight end depth. I think Herndon coming back is going to be huge for Sam. We saw in that Week 1 Giants game last year, the preseason game, he had a nice connection over the middle. I remember that one specifically. And I thought that was a little glimpse into the future, but unfortunately, after his suspension, he just went down with a rib injury. It sucks. It really does suck. They didn't get that same production out of the tight end group that I thought they were, but hopefully this year they could really try to replicate what they had in 2018.
What are your thoughts on the Frank Gore signing? Because, of course, you drafted Pirine. What does that mean for him? And Le'Veon, of course. And then what are your thoughts? I've seen Avery Williamson get brought up as a potential cut candidate. And, of course, you have Mosley. So what are your thoughts on Avery Williamson, whether you want to cut him or not, and the Frank Gore signing?
Yeah, so I'll actually go into Gore first. I thought it was a good signing at the time. I think he's going to help Michael Pirine a lot. I actually just made a post about this the other day. Le'Veon Bell and Frank Gore have like 21,000 rushing yards combined. So that's a lot of experience to help a rookie out. You don't get that often in running back rooms coming in as a rookie at all. You might have one guy that's a veteran. You could talk to him, get experience. Yep. This is going to be very good from like Michael Pirine. This is a very rare opportunity. I hope he takes full advantage of it because he could be a great running back. I really do believe that. Going into the Avery Williamson cut candidate, I've heard this a couple times, especially from Manish Mehta, New York Jets Daily Reporter. I don't think he's actually going to get cut. I understand how fans say we have a lot of depth at that inside linebacker position with Neville Hewitt. We have James Burgess now re-signed, both of them guys. also Blake Cashman.
Yeah, and Owasso from Baltimore.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great. I love that.
Yeah,
Signing.
I thought it was a great signing too. I loved him next to CJ Mosley in Baltimore too. And 2017, 2018, I thought they were
Yep.
great together. So I'm actually really happy about this signing as well. And he's not only a middle linebacker either. He rushes the passer. He's a big body guy. He's an attitude to him, and we love that on defense. Um, yeah, Avery Williamson, at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to get cut. Now, going on the opposite side of the ball, if we talk about Brian Winters, guard, I also made a post about this. I think he will be there throughout training camp to actually compete with the younger guys, see Cameron Clark, and also Alex Lewis, try to push them out for a spot. Ultimately, I do actually see him getting cut, although Joe Douglas actually highlighted his toughness in a press conference earlier this year. I do actually see him getting cut. I think they have a lot of depth along that offensive line now. And I know people say you can't have enough depth along an offensive line. Offensive lines are one of the probably top two most important positions in football, in my opinion.
Yep.
But,
I totally agree.
yeah, he just had injury concerns throughout his career. I just don't think he stays, especially on that salary. I think he's getting paid. I think he's due $7 million. So unless he takes a cap cut or salary cut, I'm pretty sure he's gone.
Yeah, I think that after being maybe the most injured team in the league last year, especially at the linebacker and offensive line spot, I think he might be scared to cut some of these experienced veterans along these two positions just in fear that it could happen again. Because last year, I think when we had almost every single middle linebacker on the roster injured for one game, I'm not quite sure which one it was. That was just absolutely brutal. So cutting a veteran and a good one in Avery Williamson seems like maybe a not smart move, judging based off what happened last year.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he tore his ACL in week 2 of the preseason. That was devastating. Gay said it was on him, but injuries do happen. You can't always blame the head coach for it. I understand he kept him in too late in that game. Yeah, he got a lot of feedback on that one. That was terrible.
Tyler, just wanted a quick kind of moving on to from the past now to the future, right? Because a lot of these teams kind of want to move on.
That's all that matters now.
Exactly. Yep. So obviously the Jets went 7-9. AFC East is kind of weaker now. Tom Brady leaves. There's a lot of it's kind of wide open in my opinion. I still have the Bills kind of as a front runner here, but there's a lot of big questions on the team. For me, at least, the two biggest ones are one about Le'Veon Bell because he comes in, right? I believe he got like 700 something yards this past season. And there was this whole incident with him bowling when he said he had the flu, I believe, or he was sick. So I didn't know if he was really invested in the Jets culture. So there's kind of questions there. Is he into the team? Is he ready to kind of come back now? Because it's been a year since the holdout, so there's a lot less pressure on him, right? And also, can he step up and be a top 5 running back or even like a top 3? Because that's what he was before he kind of did the whole holdout thing. And also my big question for this upcoming season, right? Jamal Adams. There was a lot of trade rumors throughout the past 1.5 years. Obviously the trade deadline was maybe going to Dallas. There was a lot of kind of rumors there. So in terms of the looking into the future, I know it's kind of some weird questions here, but what do you think about the whole Le'Veon Bell situation? Do you think he can regain his Steelers form? And then also about Jamal Adams, should they keep him? Should they pay him the money that he's asking for? Or should they look to maybe trade him for a first-round pick or maybe even more?
Yeah, so going to Le'Veon Bell first. I remember when that whole bowling scandal came out. I posted about that too. It was comparing MJ to Le'Veon, who had a better flu game. that was the best. But yeah, in my opinion, I don't think there's any beef between Le'Veon and the Jets at all. I think he still likes Adam Gase. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't care as much. Maybe lack of production, but I think this is actually a hot take, but I actually think they actually fixed that production issue at the end of the season, and I actually think you're going to see that going into next season. I think they actually got a lot of the quirks out of his game after staying off a year, because a lot of people got to realize he was off for 365 days off of football, right? He was training, but he didn't take those hits.
Exactly. Tackle football. Yeah.
Right. 700 yards on the ground isn't easy to do when you haven't taken hits for a full year. So I actually thought he did a fine job in his first year in a new offense with a second-year quarterback who came back from mono in week 5. So that's my opinion on him. I think he's going to be fine. I know there's a lot of rumors about him not coming back after this season, which we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, because that's a whole different other story. Because Joe Douglas might still be wanting to clear cap and everything. We don't know yet. But right now, this season, I think he's fully invested. I think he's a great guy, and I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think the problem kind of last season was he's rushing behind one of the worst lines in
Absolutely,
the league.
yeah.
And when you have Luke Falk and Trevor Siemian at quarterback and they can't throw the ball at all, there's just no way that the teams are going to let Le'Veon Bell get anywhere. They're going to force the quarterbacks to throw. And even Darnold, when he came back and was struggling a little bit, it just completely closes up the running game. So I think Bell, people hated on his season a little bit too much.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, those loaded boxes are huge.
Mm-hmm.
You see those 8-man boxes when you don't have any threat over the top, like we didn't have from, I think it was like weeks 1 to 4, 1 to 5.
Yep.
When you have those guys, Simeon and Luke Falk coming in, they're not going to threaten you deep, right? So they're going to drop 9 guys into the box, and they're just going to have like 2 over the top even, right? If there are 2 receivers split wide, there's nowhere for him to run. And not to mention the offensive line was bottom 2 in the league, right? So I think with this improved offensive line, maybe even with no training camp, cross your fingers, mini camp, things like that, I still think it's going to be very improved from last year, and I think he's going to see a lot of production from that. I think he's going to generate a lot more production overall.
Should we move on to record predictions right now?
Let's hit awards
Jamal,
first, kind of like
we can do Jamal Adams first.
The Jamal Adams. Yeah,
we got to touch on that.
Yeah, let me talk about that one first, because that's a big topic, and I think it definitely should be addressed, because where there's smoke, there's fire. This hasn't expired. This hasn't conspired over the last year for nothing. A lot of people have to realize that. I know it's settled right now. He's going to be a Jet for next year. He's going to be a Jet. There's no holdout. I doubt it. The Jets have him under control for at least another, I think, is it 2 years, I think.
2 years,
they picked up his 5th-year option. So he's not going anywhere, I don't think. I don't think he's going to get traded. But there was a lot of talk at the trade deadline last year with the Cowboys, and I think it was real. I think the Cowboys did offer a couple.
I believe it was a first.
I think it was a first. I think it was 2 firsts.
More than a first.
The Jets actually wanted 2 firsts and a second at the end of the day. Yeah, and they didn't. They obviously, he's a great player, but they obviously weren't going to get that from the Cowboys. They just kept him there. But I really don't think Jamal's going anywhere. You don't trade generational talent when your team is already bad. I think you have to keep as many good players as you can to build that talent, those cornerstone players on that defense and offense. So I think it's a fine decision by Joe Douglas to not really engage in any of those trade rumors. And also I want to touch on Marcus May too, because that story came out a couple days ago as well about Joe Douglas engaging in trade talks with safety Marcus May. I think that's just smoke as well. I really don't think anything transpired there. I think both of those safeties are going to stay in New York until the foreseeable future, because I don't think they're going to be able to pay both of those guys. So obviously the consensus among Jets fans to see one leave rather than the other would probably be May leaving, most likely, because you're not going to want to get rid of Adams. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I think they're both great safeties, and they'll be here for a little bit.
Yeah, and then kind of going into our awards predictions for next season, we did in the last episode is we're doing offensive and defensive player of the year, offensive and defensive rookies of the year, and then kind of a comeback player of the year or a breakout player of the year based off who we think is going to do better next year than they did last year. So Tyler, if you want to start us off with your offensive and defensive rookies of the year, kind of who you think is going to be there for the Jets this year.
Okay, so offensive rookie of the year, I think it's pretty easy. I think it's gonna be Denzel Mims. I think he's just gonna. I think he's actually really gonna outperform his standards. So I think a lot of people have him in that 50 reception, 700-yard range. I think he definitely eclipsed that 850. Honestly, that 850 range, because I really don't think Darnold has had a wide receiver that dynamic yet in his career. Maybe Juju in college, Juju Smith-Schuster at USC. I think that was the last one that he really found dynamic. So I think that's going to be a huge get for the Jets. And defensive rookie of the year, I want to say Jabari Zuniga, but I think I'm going to say Ashton Davis here. I think they're going to, as you said, I think they're going to use him more also on the slot. He could definitely be a cover corner for the Jets. Put Brian Poole, use both in the nickel set. I think that could be great. I had him compared to Tyrann Mathieu coming out as well. That's my pro comparison for Ashton Davis. I think it would be great for them.
I agree with you on both of those. Yeah. I agree with you on both. I think Ashton Davis is going to be a great complement to Jamal Adams in that secondary that needs a lot of upgrades. And I think with Denzel Mims, shows excellent body control, I was looking at Pro Football Focus. He led all college football receivers in contested catches since 2017. I think that's a great addition for the Jets. I think the only place where he needs to work on is route running, but if he gets that down, I mean,
Yeah,
he has flashes of number
yeah,
one.
still a very raw prospect. He was coming
Yeah,
out.
for sure.
He was actually, I had someone tell me he was actually underutilized at Baylor, which made my eyebrows go up because I was like, how do you underutilize a guy like this, right? But Baylor had a very schemic system under Matt Rule. They had to do
Yep.
things very, very specifically to him. So not like Oklahoma where they go all guns deep, everyone go forwards. It's not like an air raid offense like Baylor ran. So it's actually really interesting. That really intrigued me.
So I agree with your points about Mims. I don't know, out of us three, Shrikar and Jack, but I was super high on Denzel Mims. Actually, I had him going into the first round. I believe he was a first round talent, and as he was slipping, I was really shocked. Like, I was shocked when the Colts passed on him in the second round. I was like, when Jack was like, oh, he was getting so mad when they were trading down in the second round. He's like, oh, we're not going to get Mims. I was extremely shocked that he fell all the way to, I believe, 59, as we kind of mentioned earlier. But in terms of offensive rookie of the year, it's really close because I do want to give the O-lineman some love. I just think Becton could have the most immediate impact for a third-year quarterback like Sam Darnold. But, I mean, it's hard to pass up on, again, the first-round talent I see in Denzel Mims.
Yep.
Just, what he can do with that 6'3" frame, just a good combination of speed and athleticism. So I'm going to go with him there. And for my defensive rookie of the year, though, I was going to go with Jabari Zuniga out of Florida because I actually did want to ask you about the polite comparisons, but you did kind of address that already. But I think he's a lot better personality. He's a great kid, according to different personnel sources. And at 6'3", I believe 264 around that frame. He's got a good combination of size and speed. So I think he would be great off the edge, alongside these guys that actually we were talking about this with the Jets recap a few episodes ago. We were kind of saying that this was, I believe, like a top 7 defensive unit and really good against the run. And I talked with Jack a lot about this in terms of Quinnen Williams, who I was really shocked that they were doing well without him, right? Because he was potentially looked at as the best prospect of the draft a year ago, right? Obviously, he didn't get as much playing time. There was kind of some off-the-field issues there as well. So, obviously, I think Zuniga and Williams coming back with each other could easily make this D-line even better, make this front seven even better, make them a lot better against the run. And I'm a huge fan of Greg Williams, so I think he can utilize Zuniga to be the best defensive rookie.
Yeah, it's going to be great because Greg Williams loves switching out his defensive personnel often. So you're going to see Zuniga on the field a lot, I think, because he used Kyle Phillips on that field. He had a bunch of other guys that he used rotationally. Henry Anderson came in and out. I think it's going to be great. I think it's a great opportunity for Zuniga to learn next to Williams. It's going to only help both of them because they're going to both be getting more attention on that D-line. So, yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah. You guys really hit all the points on Mims. I mean, I had said that there was a chance I'd put him as my fourth receiver on the board above Justin Jefferson, but I definitely didn't see him falling all the way to pick 59. He's my easy choice for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he has a chance to be one of the best rookie receivers this year. It reminds me a little bit of DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown, how people were a little bit sleeping on them.
Don't forget Deebo Samuel.
In the mid-rounds. And then defensive, I'm actually going to go Bryce Hall at corner because I think that's the biggest glaring need on the Jets defense. A couple of years ago, he was a first, second-round talent, and if not for injuries, I think that he could have been picked there in this draft. And we saw what the Jets were able to do with Blasan Austin last year, who was a good talent before injuries, and he proved that he can come back to that form. And I think Bryce Hall can do the same thing and be the defensive rookie of the year. And then the last thing I kind of want to touch on, let's get the offensive and defensive player of the year predictions because we're close to the end of this episode. Tyler, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so offensive player of the year, I think it's going to be Sam Darnold overall. I think he's going to do a lot better than last year. Hopefully he doesn't miss any games. Let's cross our fingers. But, I think the interceptions are going to go down and the touchdowns are going to go up. So that's how I grade my QBs. If the next year, if the interceptions went down and the touchdowns go up, it's a better year overall, and I think he's going to have one of those. So for the defensive player of the year, I'm going to give it to CJ Mosley. I think I know a lot. I know a lot probably
Big
won't
wild card there.
but I think CJ is going to come back. If we do comeback player of the year, spoiler, that's who mine is also. So I think CJ Mosley. He's going to come back. You saw him week 1 against Buffalo under that Greg Williams scheme. He was basically unstoppable at a point. So yeah, I think he's going to come back and do great for the Jets.
All right. So for my offensive player of the year, I'm going to go with Le'Veon Bell because I feel like with a better O-line, he played behind a terrible O-line last year. I think with a better O-line, Darnold's coming back, of course. I think he's going to produce a lot more. And then my defensive player of the year is pretty obvious for me to pick. I'm going Jamal Adams. I think he's going to keep up the great play. I really like his game. So those are my two picks for offensive and defensive player of the year. For comeback player of the year, I got to go with CJ Mosley. I mean, that injury was devastating, and I know Jets fans hated to see it. It'd be really exciting to see how he comes back, and I think he's going to come back strong. One of my favorite linebackers in the league. So I'm going to go with CJ Mosley.
So solid picks. I think for offensive player of the year, it's really close. But for me, I think quarterback with Sam Darnold, at least for me, I've always had mixed opinions on him, and Jack likes him, so it kind of makes it hard to like him also. But Sam Darnold's had a wild up and down first 2 years, and I think like Baker Mayfield, I think this third year is going to be a very, very big year for him. It's going to be it's got a lot of questions. This is his must prove it year, right? So I think with this new investment in the offense, obviously I've always loved Adam Gase. I know Jets fans kind of had an up and down roller coaster ride with him over these past 2 years. But I think I mean, he made the playoffs his first year with the Dolphins. I've always kind of liked him. So I think for offensive player of the year, it's really close between Bell and Darnold, but I'm going to go with Sam Darnold. I think he can take a step forward as long as he doesn't get another kissing disease. Let's hope he stays off that. But I'm believing in Sam Darnold. I believe he can take it a step forward. Obviously, with the new weapons that he has, better offensive line. So that's my offensive player of the year. Defensive player of the year, it was really close. But I'm gonna go with CJ Mosley, just because I think what he did for Baltimore's production was very, very solid. And obviously, I believe they signed Mosley, and they were gonna sign Anthony Barr in the same free agency class if he had not kind of stabbed them in the back and gone back to Minnesota. But I think that allowed him to kind of get his production kind of as a solo linebacker. Now he's got a lot of help around him. They're investing more in the front seven. I just think he's going to be a lot better. I mean, Jamal Adams is the obvious pick here, but I think CJ Mosley is kind of a sleeper there. And for comeback player of the year / most improved, I think the most improved player will be Le'Veon Bell. I was a huge fan of him in Pittsburgh, even though he would kind of consistently gash the Browns. But I think his game is really, really unique to how he plays. And I think it's very hard to mirror what he does because his patience, finding the right holes and just gashing through defenses like that, I think it's second to none. So I think if he can bring back that talent that he had in Pittsburgh, I think he's easily a lock for most improved player on the New York Jets.
Yeah, I think you guys touched on a lot of the points I would hit on. I mean, Sam Darnold, my favorite player in the league, favorite football player of all time, but bias aside, I still think he's going to be the Jets' offensive player of the year this year. Quarterback tends to run the offense. I think that Darnold has shown his first 2 years, whether people choose to believe it or not, that he can be a top quarterback in this league when he has weapons and protection around him. And I think that you'll finally see that this year. While he might not be, an MVP caliber quarterback this year, he will be better than his first 2 years. I can almost guarantee that. Defensive player of the year, I mean, Jamal Adams, I think, is easily the best safety in the league. It's close between him and Minka, but I'm going to give the upper hand to Adams, and I think he's going to prove it even more this year. He's gotten better each season he competes. And then most improved player, I'm surprised no one else kind of talked about this. I'm going to go Quinnen Williams. I think he's going to touch the field a little bit more than he did last year, and I think that he will have production because a lot of people like to forget that he was one of the top players in the draft class last year, and you just don't lose talent. So I think that with more playing time and more experience, he can become a top interior defensive lineman. Tyler, do you want to get us started on record prediction?
Yeah, so record prediction, I have the Jets. I could do a floor and a ceiling if that's cool. I'll do realistic, and then I'll do a floor and a ceiling.
Sure.
So realistic, I'll say 9-7, or 8. Yeah, 9-7. I'll say the schedule is tough. I'm not gonna lie. I'm obviously on the optimistic side. I'm not gonna be pessimistic about my team, but 9-7 is where they land. That's where I think they'll land. 9-7, possibly 8-8. 9-7. Do I think it'll get into the playoffs? Maybe. Definitely next year when we have a expanded playoff bracket, 100%. 9-7 won't get anybody into the playoffs, in my opinion. But this year, I'm not sure if it will. So for a floor, I would
Is
say
the 7-team playoff thing this year or next? I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
It's this year, right?
I believe it's this year.
no, is
It's
it
this
this year?
year.
No, it is
The
this year. I was
17
thinking about
17
right. I
games
was
is
thinking
next year, yeah.
right. I was thinking about
So I think
that.
9 and
Right.
7 should get him in. No, you're good.
Yeah,
You're good.
actually, yeah, it will get in. Okay, so floor I would say is I think 6-10. I think they have a possibility of going 6-10 with the record now because they have to play the entire NFC West. Yeah, so we'll see. A ceiling I have them just 10-6. I think that's their ceiling if everything goes right. No injuries, no nothing. I think it's 10-6. Yeah.
Trigar?
You want to go before me?
Shrika, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, cool. So I have them going 6-10, because I mean, Adam Gase has to mold this offense into a well-oiled machine, basically. But I mean, that's going to take some time because you got several new components at wideout and on the offensive line. The secondary is still a work in progress, specifically on the boundaries. So I see him getting 6 wins this year, but I think the year after, I think that's their year.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I looked at their schedule. It is absolutely brutal. I mean,
Yeah,
like
It
you've got
is,
to play
yeah,
the NFC
100%.
West, you got to play the AFC North. It's absolutely tough. There's like a lot of like there. I'm sorry. Like when I looked at it, I was like, there are only 2 games that I considerably favor them in, and one is against
Yeah,
Miami.
they're not favored in any games according
Yeah, honestly,
according to Vegas.
yeah, I see them.
Yeah.
I see them beating Vegas because I think they've had their number, and then Miami at home. Those were the 2
Yeah.
games that I had for sure. But
Yeah.
everything else is just
I
completely
know.
like up to
It's
chance.
tough.
So with this record, it was really tough because I wanted to go 6-10, but I just feel like it was, for example, that Jets Steelers game this past season. I believe the Steelers were 8-6 when they played. I just had a weird feeling that they were going to win that game. I just had a hunch that they were going to upset them. So there's going to be some of those games where they just step up their play at the right time and they beat one of those teams that you would think they lose to. So I have them going 7-9, and I think it's a decent record considering the AFC East. There's a lot of factors that go into it because I think Miami got a lot better, and I think they're headed in the right direction. I'm still cool with Ryan Fitzpatrick being a starter. Obviously, what he did to New England that final game, I think he's still shown that he's got some stuff left in the tank.
Yeah, I do. I have
Buffalo's
the Dolphins going 6-10 actually. I do have them improving drastically. So.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of just improving overall, so they can easily beat some teams that you would think they would lose to. So, and Buffalo's still there. New England is. I mean, I have the utmost faith in Bill Belichick. I still, until I see it, I've got the Patriots always being a formidable asset there.
I agree. Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions. So I got 7-9 there. And yeah, Jack, what are your thoughts?
So I think that the Jets, not only personnel-wise got better, but also just having another year with coaching and not having to make coaching changes for the first time in Sam Darnold's professional career, I think will help him out and help the team out. So I think the team's going to go 8-8, but I can see 9-7 or 10-6 depending on how the schedule falls out. I mean, every time at the beginning of the year, you think the schedule's gonna be difficult, but then it's gonna change because teams
exactly,
like
100%.
teams are gonna underperform. Like I can see the Rams being very bad next year, or I can see them being good. It's impossible to predict until we see them play. So it's hard to judge schedule before the season even starts. So it could get easier. It could get even harder, which at the moment seems a little difficult. But I can see him going 8-8, maybe 9-7. But I mean, that's an improvement. And as long as you see improvement from the team, I think that'd be a win of a season. I just want to see 500, to be completely honest.
Right. Yeah, I'll also add this. We're making these predictions now, but 2 weeks into the preseason, these predictions could be wild. Like you never know what teams like exactly like what happened to Jimmy G. Yeah, what happened to Jimmy G with his ACL in San Francisco? Yep. People thought that year was going to be great for the Niners. People thought the Niners were going to do what they did last year, go to the Super Bowl, right? And like it just falls off the wagon, so you really never know. All these predictions might mean nothing. They might be spot on. You never know.
Yeah. So thank you, Tyler, for joining us. Make sure to go check out his Instagram, NY Jets Game Plan. It's going to be in the description. Thanks for joining us, man. And we're going to have more content with other pages in the future. So thank you guys for listening to this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.